Hello, everyone. My name is Mr. David Oku. And recently I've been asked to make a lesson plan. Um, and it's around the Cambridge curriculum and it's to do with computer systems. Um, and let me get the details. It's from stage 7 to 9, grade 6 to 8, and it's computer systems. And I said to myself, um, I've done many lessons plan, but let me just record this. So it's on my channel and I have like a breakdown of how I make a lesson plan. Right now I'm working at the university level. So the lectures are long at the university I work for. Um, I have like 2 hour lecture. I give 2 hour lectures. So when someone's just saying 15 minutes, it takes me back to when I was working in the school and it's like the time is more shorter for the actual lesson that you're giving. Um, it's really getting my mind back into that framework of working in the schools to do this lesson plan. But anyway, let's get back to it. So the Cambridge curriculum for computing, as you can see, I'm on the page. It's just an overview of the syllabus, and I'll give you a few minutes to read that. Whoever's watching this video, and then I'll just break it down a little bit. I'll go into it a little bit, what we're seeing here. Okay, the syllabus. Okay, so I take it you've read a bit of this now, and the Cambridge curriculum is really just trying to get students to understand how to solve problems, especially for computing. So you have this subject, and how do we use this subject to solve problems? And that's at the core of this. Because I'm still a Cambridge teacher, I have access to a lot of these resources are online still. I was sent this framework, but I've logged into my area. Um, and as you can see, it gives a bit more. It says investigate how individual components are joined together, but systems, networks, understand how data is processed, computational thinking, which is really important, writing short computer programs to solve problems. And we also have here engaging, engaged, confident, responsible, reflective, innovative. So we have all of these things that they want you to be teaching, and you've got to think about this as you're making a lesson plan. You've got to be thinking, how can I incorporate all of these elements? How can I make my students confident, responsible? How can I make them reflect, which is really important, innovative, and engaged? We're trying to get them to do these things, include those skills. Okay. So when I lesson plan, I always go to the core of the subject content. And if you go through, it will tell you it has all the subject content. And for most people that are doing Cambridge curriculum, most teachers that are doing Cambridge curriculum, most of it is there for you. Every single thing is there. So what I've learned is that I always just stick to the Cambridge curriculum for what I'm doing, and I always find um, a guide or framework to follow for my lesson plans. Because as you can see, it's all there. Everything is there. Input, output devices. It breaks everything down. Into the subjects that you'll be covering or the topics you'll be covering within your lesson. So for this lesson plan, I was just given the framework. So I went through this some digging, some plan, look at how they're saying Cambridge you should plan as teachers. I always plan in the way of parents, CIS, head teachers, principals, head teachers, and other team members. Parents in schools I've worked at have always wanted to see the teachers' lesson plans and what the students are doing in the classroom across the curriculum. And that's one thing I've seen. Stakeholders like CIS want to know and they want a detailed plan. What are you doing in the classroom? What are the students doing in the classroom? And the principal, like what's going on? Like, so these things help you. These frameworks help you. Teacher guides help you, but you have to be a Cambridge teacher to access some of these things. But if you are, then you know it'll give you an idea of your approach to planning, like planning the year. And then once you can plan the year, you can plan the term, like long-term planning. It gives you an idea for lower secondary. Um, and once you just follow this process, it makes your work a whole lot easier. And it just makes all the stakeholders feel much more confident as well. There's one thing I've noticed with the parents. They feel really confident once they know what the students are doing. And if you're just following the curriculum, because normally parents that are sending their kids to on the Cambridge or Ivy program, they've actually picked this program and they're understanding it. So for example, it gives you ideas for active learning approaches. It gives you ideas for what else? Learner groupings, stuff like this, what to do. And you can just incorporate that group activities, whole class activities. So I think this is a really good place to start when making a lesson plan. Just for some support there. I would say any teacher that is going to be teaching Cambridge, any subject, you should find your teacher guide for your subject area and follow that. Let that support you, like what I've done for this lesson plan. So if we get to the lesson plan now, I've been given this template, and I quite like this template. I'll start at the top. I put the title in, the dating, which is today's date. It's quite late here because I've been super busy with work. So it's getting everything in can be tough, but that's what we teachers do. The group that I've got this for, and then the duration and the number of students, which is the group size, which is really important. People normally forget these things. This is really, really important to do. Now, when it comes to the aims, I looked through the Cambridge syllabus and I found out for this particular topic area, these are the aims. So as you're going through the learning aims, the overall learning aims, and these are the learning aims for this lesson plan. So it guides you because all of this is from Cambridge. So computer systems help learners to understand that computers follow precise sets from instructions to process inputs, that are given by humans to make decisions and just outputs. And then you can break that down. So if a parent is reading that, the parent's thinking, okay, my child is understanding understand the basic concept of computer systems, their functions, defining embedded systems, learning about different types of computer systems. It just breaks it. I've broken it down. I've made it this sentence a bit more clearer because not every parent is computer savvy, and not every body on your team maybe your principal is an English teacher or a maths teacher, and they're like, okay, so what does this sentence actually mean? Unpack it. So in the aims, I just unpack that. In the past, when I've done this, parents have really, really liked it. Like, okay, so I understand my daughter or my son is actually the aim of this lesson they've been doing on such and such day. So then we go further down, and this is the learning objectives here. Yeah. What are the learners expected to learn and have completed after this lesson? So I was told to pick like one or two of these. So I thought about the time I had. I only had 50 minutes. So I picked the first one. The first one was evaluate the design of digital devices and systems. So so I'm breaking that down. This is all from the curriculum. It's all from the Cambridge curriculum. It's all the Cambridge curriculum guided, because that's what the parents and the parents are paying for that. The school's paying for Cambridge curriculum. So I stick to the Cambridge curriculum. So understand and explain how digital devices function. students should explain the digital devices, that digital devices accept inputs. Students can explain that digital devices produce outputs. Students can follow a process. Students can follow a process. So the students can learn and understand that, okay, I'm following this process. I can follow through the lesson plan. I can follow through what we're doing today. And these are some of the objectives that I want students to do in the lesson that we're going to have. Now, I always just write this down, like extension learning objectives. Some students go fast, and when I'm new to a group, like for example, they say this lesson plan is to be used in a group that I don't know, I have an extension exercise, and that extension exercise is just here, and the students will, the ones that can get through this quicker, or just find this really easy, I can just pick up on that and know from the way, from some of the assessments that I've bedded into the lesson plan, and they can move on. And some parents want to see these extensions. I had a CIS officer come in. They want to see that, okay, so what happens if they move on, or what happens if it's easy? Well, I've got some extensions for them. And I've had some principals act for this as well. So I've also just put homework down here as well at the bottom, that can help with that. That continues from this extension task as well. And I've just put that there just to normally remind myself, David, I need to make sure this is the homework. And anyone else can see that as well. So say, for example, there's a cover lecturer, a cover teacher. Cover teachers can also understand, because they're also a stakeholder. Anything can happen. Could be on the way to work, traffic, anything can happen. Accident, is the lesson plan there? Can another teacher step in? They can step in, because this is just clear points that is there. Do I need to give homework? Oh, here's an idea for homework. I can tell the students. So this lesson plan template also has inclusion. This is really, really important. So I put down some inclusion strategies, which are basically from Cambridge as well, and from my experience, but fundamentally from Cambridge. So these give me some idea of what to include in my lesson plan to make the lesson inclusive. So it says here, how will you make your lesson inclusive? Define clear and minimum standards for behavior. So routines, very important. When a student walks into a classroom, is there a welcome? Is there a way they sit down? Is there a way they wait at the door before they even walk in? Am I at the door as they walk in? Or am I at my desk? There's a strict routine that I make my students follow, especially when I'm getting to know them, and when I'm getting to know a group. So normally they line up to the classroom. I welcome them in. There's an orderly fashion. I can sense you can sense the feeling. If the student is happy, the student's attitude, they're sad, or whatever is going on, or maybe something's happened in the morning or in the afternoon. You need to, or I as a teacher like to pick up on those things. So I normally welcome the students at the door. But as part of my inclusion, I have a routine and I have expectations. I ensure that standards are kept. So this is just, okay, are these standards consistent? I make sure to deal with load, anything that's happening. Like, for example, it normally starts outside of the classroom before it comes in. So at the doorway, if people have got high energy, or if they need to just calm down a little bit, you can do that outside the classroom before they walk in. Like, okay, everyone, we're about to start IT lesson. Okay, everyone, calm. Are you ready for today? You can just calm them before they get in, not this running in to the lab. Because the lab, there's cables, there's computers, there's sharp edges. So you've got to be really careful of that, because some students can be really, depending on time of the day, depending on what they've eaten, depending on what sugar's inside them. But it's just always good to take all of these inclusion things into consideration. There's one important thing, or they're all important, but there's one thing I like here. This is a very important and very key to my inclusion strategy. How do students know when they have achieved success? So parents, everyone wants to know this. How does success look? How does success look like? So I make a point of making sure I include this. This is why it's in blue. So anyone reading this lesson plan, like, okay, why is it in blue? Okay, I get it. This is important. How does it look like, especially if someone's covering or anything like that? How does it look like when someone has succeeded in this lesson? And here are some strategies that you'll see that are within the lesson plan as well. And then I put these down as well, give learners opportunity to make their own decisions. Lots of this collaboration, making sure appropriate language is used. So yeah, these are some things that are from Cambridge, and I make sure that in the lesson plan as we go further down, you will see, and these are some things that I picked up. Parents really want to know, how's my child training being successful? So the principals as well, and other stakeholders, the student themselves. How do I know I've achieved something here? So let's go further. Let's actually go on to the tasks now. So this lesson plan I was saying has the time, what am I doing? So what are you doing, the teacher? What are students doing? And then the resources. So as I said, this is like a norm and expectation. Welcome all students to the classroom by saying hi, how are you? So I'm getting a feel of what the students are. There's that engagement there. I'm showing them respect. Hello, how are you? And they should respond back to me, hi, and how they're feeling. As they do that, they walk into the classroom, they take their seats. From this, I will know, I'll have an idea of how the student is feeling. Obviously, we're going to need desks and chairs for them to sit on. Then I'm going to go down to, as I said, for my inclusion, I'm going to put the classroom rules on the projector or whiteboards. I normally have a PPT that shows the classroom rules that I project. I always do at the beginning of the lesson because it's an expectation and it's a routine thing students see, whether it's 4 minutes or 2 minutes. This is the time is important, but normally at the start, when I don't know a group, it'll be about 4 minutes. But then as we go through, maybe I just put it up on the, as I said, I like to decorate a classroom in the first interview. I like to make that space an IT space. And when students come in, they know what to expect because using an IT room is different from using an English classroom or maths room. There's so much equipment in the IT room and that needs to be managed, and students need to just respect the space they're in and each other. Safety is really, really important. So, okay, so we go through the values, respect and value everyone's opinion. Do not interrupt, encourage each other, give and accept constructive criticism, support each other, stick to deadlines, listen to each other. So this is what I will be doing by showing the projector and walking through this. Students will be reading the rules as I'm going through, and they'll ask questions. So say, like some students will say, what do you mean respect? Then I'll tell them, and I'll ask them, what do you think it means? Can you give me an example of how you can show each other respect? 9 out of 10, there'll be some students in the classroom. I'll say, this is how you show respect. This is how you encourage others. So they're just demonstrating their knowledge. Students will read the rules and answer the questions. So I may ask a question, how do you show these things? Like as is here, give examples of how somebody would carry out the rules. So I want it to come from them. Remember going back to the Cambridge curriculum where it says, if I go back to the top, where it says here, we want to make sure they're confident, responsible, engaged. We want to make sure they can reflect. This is what the Cambridge learner. So I'm always instilling what the curriculum is saying. I want this knowledge to come from them. It's coming out from them, and I'm supporting this learning environment. I'm this facilitator. So you will see as we go through the lesson, there's a lot of things I'm facilitating, and it's coming from them, and this knowledge. So then after I've done the rules, I always do a quick review. So I like using Kahoot. So whatever we did previously, we're going to do a review of that. And because I want to make this fun, I use Kahoot. And because I want to make this kind of like an assessment, this could be used as kind of like a kind of, you can use it both as different types of assessments. I'll take Kahoot, but this gives me an idea of what the student knows from or what the information that retains basically from the previous lesson. So that's one good one there. And I like, and Kahoot is really quick to make. Students like it. It's fun. It's engaging. There's elements of competition there. So this should relax students after the rules. I've never gone wrong. Students are always happy. After done a Kahoot, they want to still playing it more, but we move on. So then with this part now, I'm going to introduce the topic that we are doing. So I'll introduce the overview of the topic. Well, as we know, it's about computer systems. So computer systems, the concept is input, process, and output. This is the very basic of digital devices. In computer systems, we're going through what is a digital device? How do we classify a digital device? Well, the concept is input, process, and output. So what I'm going to do, I will give them an overview, the aim of the lesson. I will show students how success looks. Remember what I said, the inclusion. So as inclusion, I will show them how success looks. I'll show them other students' work from that's done this module before. I will show other work from other groups at the schools I've worked in. If it's a new school or a new group, this is what students have done on this module previously. And this is how their work look, and this is how it was successful. As I'm doing this, students will ask questions. It's very important. Students will sit, listen to the instruction and success criteria. Students will ask questions about the success criteria. Students will now be listening and watching the PPT on the whiteboard about the success criteria and also the overview of the module. The students now, they are processing. Some will be asking questions because how do they want to know how to achieve, obviously. So as we're reading, some will be asking questions. I like this free flowing space. Yes, I'm in control. Yes, no one's speaking over each other because we set the rules. Do not speak over each other. Do not be rude to each other. So these things are set in place. Okay. So as we go further down, I'm going to have an introduction PPT on the board. I'm going to need the projector, as you've just seen. I've said on the equipment side. I'll need a projector for the PPT to be shown that I've made. That's going to introduce. Students will see the following. They'll see PPT slides 1 to page 5. I've made the PPT. I won't include that in this video for now. I'll do that at the next stage. I'll do that for another stage. Basically just due to time, I don't want this video to be so long. But I have, just to that you guys can see this, so I have the folder made with the lesson slide, or maybe I'll just go do a quick view, a quick show, maybe the lesson slide and some activity sheets that the students will need if they go through. So, but I want to stick on this for now instead of going to the resources. So the welcome slide is there. The students understand the success criteria. They understand the rules. They understand the overview. They understand because they're asking questions as this is going on and as they're seeing the slides. On the slides, they will have key vocab in words because some students prefer to read, and I'll also have the key vocab in images. So where there's a device, digital device, there'll be a picture of the device. Where there's the word input, there'll be a picture of someone doing input or some kind of input image. Where there's a word of process, there'll be some kind of process picture, and the same for output, some kind of output picture along with the word. So there's that visualness to that as well. Okay, so we're on. So here, what am I doing as we move on? I'll ask the following questions. What digital devices can you identify in the PPT? So as I've said, I literally just said there'll be images on the PPT with words as well. I'll say to the students, what can you see? Students will say what they know, and they'll display their knowledge. They'll say, hang on, I can see a mobile phone, I can see a laptop. Now, as I've put in blue, this is a chance for assessment. So as I'm going through, I'm just doing this small assessment for the students, and I'm just checking their knowledge, like what do they know? So I'm examining prior knowledge. There's some students I'll be like, I know laptop, I know mobile phone, I know computer, I desktop, I know. They'll be going through it, and they'll no, and then you're like, okay, this, and the other students will be maybe quiet or not be so confident, and you can see that as you're going through. So I can use this question kind of like that type of assessment and keep a mental note or actually write something down with a pad, depending on the group and depending on my confidence with that group. Yeah, so this is what you can use that for as well at the beginning as well. So that's just checking as well what they're seeing and understanding and comprehension. The tools, you can see that on needs at the side, like there. And as we go further down, now we're getting into it. So now I'm going to have a task called sorting objects task. Now, the sorting objects task, I'll display the sorting task slide. So I'm going to have a slide that says sorting task. Students the learners will see images. So the students are going to see images, a range of objects on the screen, on the PPT. As I'm doing that, the students will have access to this sorting object task. So normally, when I've worked in schools, there's a learning management system, and each student can log into the learning management system, and that's like Google Classroom or something like this. So students will log into this, and I have the PPT there, all the lesson notes, because parents also want to see that as well. And it's all going to be organized on the LMS. I usually used to use Schoology, which is brilliant. I've used ClassDojo, depending on the age group. I've used Google's Classroom. These things will work, and then in one school they wanted us to use the school's own LMS system that was designed, where it had every single thing. So this will be a PPT. The students will log on. They'll be able to see this slide on the LMS as well as this on the whiteboard. So I'll have it on the whiteboard. Students will also log on as well, and they can either see on their computers or just stare at the screen and the big whiteboard that's in front of them, the projector. I'll also put the students into groups of 5 because there's 20 students. So I have 5 groups, and I'll put them into groups of students of 5. And as I put them into the groups, the next thing to do is I'll ask the students how they'll sort the images. So what the students are going to see, they're going to have 2 groups of images. The images are going to be digital and non-digital devices. So which one is a digital device and which one's not a digital device? So I think I should do a quick visual from my PowerPoint just so you can visualize this. There's an activity. Let me go to my folder. Open the slides. So you can have a visual understanding of this task. Taking time to load. Okay, here we are. So I'm just going to quickly go down here to this image that I want to get onto. So they're going to have these images, and they're going to have to sort into 2 groups, non-digital and digital. Okay, so I'm going to give them time in their groups to sort these images out. Yeah. Now, as the students do that, what I love to do, I'll be moving around the classroom and discussing with each group what they think about the digital and non-digital images. What are they? Students will have discussions within their groups. As I'm doing this, they're making their group, they're moving to groups, then students will have discussions within their groups and me, because I'm going to be walking around, as to what images are digital and non-digital. Now, the groups, I tend to let students make their own groups when I'm first new. and I let them, okay, you work because that way they're more comfortable and I can see the friendship groups that are going on. And then after that, depending on abilities and whatever may be going on in the classroom, I alter that group plan. But at first, I let them make their groups, so they can work with each other. So then here, I will move around the room as I just said, and I'll be looking at the images with them. And I'll be saying, which one do you think is non-digital, which one do you think is digital? And then they'll be having those discussions, and they'll be also thinking, sort them out as teams. Again, this is another key task for assessment. So I'll be going through making some like assessments in my mind. What they know? I'll be noting their responses. Do they understand what the objects are? How are they describing the objects? This is all giving me information about their abilities, their strengths, and their weaknesses as I'm listening to them work. Okay. So as I go around, the next thing that will happen, let me just move this up. Things, yeah, it should be like that. So I'll go back to my computer once the students have been discussing for a few minutes or so. Time is a very important thing here because only 50 minutes. And as I said at the beginning, as a university lecturer, I'm lecturing for 2 hours or longer sometimes. But this is 50 minutes. It's concise, like what I used to do in schools. So I need to make sure I can fit everything in. So I'll go back to my computer and I'll ask all students to stop discussion now, and then students will stop the discussion. I'll ask them for a group name. Like, can everyone make a group name? So they'll make a group name, and I'll put that on the boards. And then I will, as I said here, I'll ask the students to share how their group basically sorted the objects. So how did their group sort these objects into digital and non-digital? Now, as we know, what the learning objective is to look at digital devices and understand that we have inputs, we have processes, and we have outputs. Yeah. So that's the thing in our mind that where I'm holding my mind. The students may not be quite there yet, but they will get there soon. And they'll be like, oh, okay, I get it, sir. So as we go through, I'll ask them and they'll give me feedback and I'll put it on the board, whatever the students have said. Students will, as I said here, students will share ideas and thinking regarding what is non-digital and digital. And again, now we've come back. This is like it's opened. They were in groups, and that's one big group. I'll go from group to group. They're using these communication skills. They're in dialogue with each other. They're in dialogue with me. They engage with the content, and I like that type of free. It's like they're free to express what they're thinking. And as you can see, there's lots of discussions in this. So they're flexing those communication muscles. I really like that. That input, and I can see where they are as well. So as is here, I'll start a class discussion on the feedback from the group that they're giving. I will now show the students the right answer on the board. So I'm going to show them the right answer on the board. So I'm going to show you guys the right answer on the board. I don't know what you guys are thinking, but not normally with this activity, when I've done it before, if I've done this activity before, students will do this. They'll normally sort it out like this. Now, we can see that, this is the right answer, but normally, hold on, I can't separate. Normally they'll put these two over here. So they'll put the lamp and the torch over here. And this would be the digital, and this would be the non-digital. But this is the correct answer. Now, students will have a light bulb in their mind saying, hang on, they will think at this level, they will think, but those are electric. Now we're getting to the idea of what is a digital device. Now we're going to discuss, as I've shown the answers to the students, as I said here, I've got the right answer to the boards. Students will now see that the torch and the lamp will be on the, it's going to be in a non-digital group. The students will normally say, why? Students will say, why? Hang on, that's an electrical item. Why? At this point, I'll explain to the students. So I'm going to explain to them. But objects are grouped into digital and non-digital devices. Yeah? Now, as I explained, the students will listen and they may ask some questions as well, but they're going to be listening as I'm explaining so they can understand first and then ask questions. A digital device has to process information. So these two do not process information. Yes, they use they're electrical, but they don't process information. They're either on or off. The laptop processes information. The phone, the robot, the computers, all of these devices here are digital devices that process information. So students now, the light bulb should be going up in their heads that digital devices process information. Also, students process information. They have a brain that works like a computer. But yeah, so this is and they'll be like, okay, I get it now. To be considered a digital device, it needs to process information. And I'll be saying like how I'm saying it now. And they're getting it, sinking in. This idea of processing information, which means that it can do something beyond being either on or off. Well, we know these two can either be only on or off. They use power, but it can only be on or off. They're not processing information. This is a computer science class. This is not physics. So we're not going to go there, or chemistry. We're not going to go that deep. They're not processing information. Okay. So as we go through, we're now moving on to input, process, output, machine. Students understand now they're connecting the dots that these process something. I have to do something for these to process something. Then now, if they're connecting those dots and there's no problems, like I sent an email off before I did this, and I said, are there any disabilities with the school? I'm doing this lesson plan like there are no disabilities. Everyone is on a certain level where they can understand. They know that they input information. They know the console. They have that idea. They can think in that way. So taking that into consideration that all students are fine, and this is just a standard lesson, students should have connected the dots that yes, we need the input, these devices need the process, they need the output. So we're following the lesson objectives. We're getting there. Yeah. So as we go further down, we can see that I'll display where it says the slides that I'll put on the board will be input, process, output, and machine. And this is very important. I'll show you that something I've made. It's small, like on the PowerPoint, I'll show you it's a small tool, and I call it the input process output machine. So it's just going to show the students, this is like a model. But the students will see this slides, which is the input output model, but I'm calling it machine just so the students have that engagement. What machine? And it gets them listening. I'm going to put this on the board. I'm going to show you the slide in 1 second. If I move this up from beneath. So I'll explain to the students that we can tell whether a digital device, by applying, whether something's a digital device by applying the input-output model. I'll explain example of the input-output model. I'll give them an example of it and I'll show on the screen. So I'll open a Word document, yeah? And when I open a Word document, let me see if I can do it now. Let me quickly open a Word document. New. And at the same time of doing this, I will ask students to do this with me. So I'll say to them, follow with me. So I'll say, students, as I'm doing this, open it with me. Yeah, I'm gonna get back to this model just in 1 second. I'm gonna put this up on the screen so you guys can get an example of this model, so you can see what I'm talking about here. So I'll say to them, this is input, this is process, this is output, and this is a model for all digital devices. So no matter what, this is how digital devices work. Press the button on the keyboard, gives you a process, it shows you, depending what you press, then it outputs. So if I type, so I'm going to say to them, okay, students, now open a Word document, as it says in the lesson, this is the PowerPoint. We're going to open a Word document. We're going to say, I, all. Now, I've inputted using the keyboard, and the computer has processed that within Microsoft using binary. We're not going to get too deep in this lesson, but the computer's processed that, and as the computer's processed that, it's outputted hi all on the screen. So I'm going to let the students follow me, copy me, doing that for quite a bit, as it says here. Use the keyboard to input, and then it shows it on the screen. That model would have been up on the screen just before we had done that example. Input, process, output. So that gives the students a more visual understanding of this machine, or this model, that they can understand, a visual representation of it. And they actually do it with me, that they actually do it by doing this small task. Okay, then I go further down, and students will share their ideas about that and what they think. If they have any questions, I'd love them to share their ideas and say, okay, I get this. So whether it's with a camera or game, maybe somebody will say, I'll say, do you have any ideas you'd like to share? Can you think of any other digital devices that you need to put in? I'll just be asking questions with this as I go along. And as I say here, because I write that down about these questions, I'll have an open discussion about what the computer is doing. So what is the computer doing? We press buttons, yeah, and then now we input something, and then it shows the correct letters on the screen, which is our output. So I'll be asking questions, and as I'm asking questions, they're engaging. Students will watch the demonstration, and questions are welcomed, as I've said. So they'll watch me do it, as I've said, and I'll be going again as many times as I can, as many times I can, as many times as I can. I like just to get that in their heads, just to get in their heads, just to get that. Okay, I'm inputting, and they'll be doing this as well on their computers. Okay, and I'll just take a few minutes to let that sink in. Okay, so that's where I am with that, demonstrating that. Let me go down. So then I will give the students time to explore the model, as I've just said. I will have this on the projector where the students can see. But then before we move on, and as the students have done that input exercise, and they're just asking questions, or I'm trying to get them to do that connection, that mental model, yeah, that connection in their minds of I'm doing something here, and this is a digital device. This is what digital devices do. So I'm gonna say here, note myself, and maybe there's a cover teacher. This always happens. Students will explore the concept of input, process, model, output. Now, on my slides, I've made a short animation. So with this animation on my slides, I'm going to quickly just let this slide work like this. And then I'm going to show this input, output. So we have one football that's gone through, it's processed it, and it's come out as a football at the other end. A star with input, then a process, the star output. So this is here, process makes it bigger. So something's happening here within our computer that's processing, and then we're outputting it. So we're making the star, a small star, become bigger. So I'm showing them that processes can happen within a digital device. So we can input something, there'll be a process, and then there'll be output. Football, 2 footballs. So something's happened here. There's been something in this process that's produced 2 footballs. Yep. Star, input, 2 stars. So maybe there's some maths going on here. Maybe we'll do some cross-curriculum activities as we go through, okay? So it doubled it. So the process is doubling it. So we have some kind of maths thing going on here that's doubling our input. So if we go further, we have 2. Well, we can see the doubles, yes. 5, we can see we've done adding, haven't we? So this is what I'm going to be showing the students as we go through to get this understanding of input, process, and output. This is the machine I've made. Like I'm calling it a machine, but it's just a small animation to get the kids thinking of how computers work. Okay, so how I'll use the correct term, digital devices work. The students will do that. I'll demonstrate that. The students will give the answers. We'll discuss that a bit again. The students will give their answer like, okay, so something is happening here where I'll ask them from the demo, students, what's going on here? There's input and then there's an output. Something's happening. They were like, okay, it's adding or it's timesing or it's making it bigger. The process is happening. So I'll get them to share their knowledge. I won't say to them, tell them, they will share their knowledge with me. And at the end, I'll just confirm what they're seeing in that animation. So as it says here, that will go on. All I've done here is just laid out exactly what you saw in the slide, the animation showing the machine carrying out. It adds 2, becomes 4. I've just broken it down on the lesson plan. So someone see it using the slide I've made will see it. So now what I'll do, there's another task that I'll give the students. I will now hand out some tasks to the students. So I'll hand out some slides. Let me move this down. It's done something with the editing. So I will ask the students if they can explain the process of the machine, as we said, and then they'll just explain that process of the machine. They may ask some questions. They may say it's adding, it's doubling, it's taken away, but I'll do that 2 or 3 times. And then as I have said here, just move this down, the editing of the form. I've said here, I will hand out A2 activity sheet to the students. So I'll quickly just open A2 activity sheet, which is here, A2 activity sheet. And then I want the students now to do this themselves now. I want them to practice doing this themselves, where it's, they've got to process. So now there's some cross-curriculum things going on here. As you can see, I've introduced math to them, or I'm not introducing it for the first time to them, but I'm adding some math into this, where they're using their brain as the processor, and the output is going to be here. The students will do this, and they're getting the idea of something is going in, something is being processed, and some students will say, so my brain is a computer. I'm like, yeah. Some students will be like that. And then they'll add up and they'll work on this worksheet. I'll give them time to do that. As I've said here, it goes on that I may let them, depending on the type of group I have as students, I'll let them work in groups or in pairs. Then they'll review each other's work. I'll give them, as is here, this activity works as a cross-curriculum math activity. So I've done this before where they're using numbers. This is just good to show, like with Cambridge, especially when if CIS like normally the CIS that comes in, I'll do a lesson like this, then you can see that crossover of curriculum. Okay, and then students will answer questions as we move forward on this activity, then solving those questions as you've seen on the activity 2. And as I said here, this is an opportunity for scaffolding, right? So I will use questioning to ensure the students have understood, because it's not about the math. It's about, do they understand the concepts? So I'll be walking around the classroom as they're doing this activity, making sure that they understand this concept, which is really important. Then I'll review the answers with the students. There's an answer sheet I have. Let's go down. Down. And then I will have an explore activity. I've moved this down to the columns. So this is an explore activity that I'll have. I'm almost at the end of my, this video is quite long now, so I want to quickly get through it, just explaining. But I'm almost at the end now of just explaining this lesson plan. It does take some time, there's a lot to this, but the students need to understand of how this digital devices work before we move on. And the fundamental concept of this lesson is understanding input, process, output. So we're going to discuss this here. We're now going to have a discussion. We're going to discuss what the input, process, and output are, opening app or a program on a laptop or tablet. For example, they will use their keyboards to do this. Students should suggest the following. I will use the trackpad or touchscreen to input. The students will tell the computer what to do when I tap the click. So they're going to say, so for example, I'll demo and say, okay, guys, I'm inputting this, similar to the word, but we're breaking this down again, so just reinforcing what they've been doing, reinforcing this idea of input. But now we're having this discussion. Now, after the worksheet are done, we're having this discussion. So how does this look on a laptop? How does this look on a tablet? How does this look on your console at home? Reinforcing the knowledge, yeah, that we've been going over, this constant reinforcement. Okay. And then now, as I said here, this is continuing with the inputs, the mouse. The students will say, so I'll be saying to students, where you have input, you have the mouse, you have the off, the on, and the students will be answering. Students will be, I'll give them examples, and they'll be taking those examples, and they'll be saying, yes, this is what I'm doing with my, on my computer. This will be done as a group. So I'll put them back into their groups that we had at the beginning, and I'll let them do this discussion in groups. Because I feel that'll be much more an effective way. So they'll be moved back into their first group instead of the whole class talking now at this time after the worksheets. I want to put them back into their groups and just discuss this this issue. Okay, and then now I move on. Let me go further down and process. So I have a slide and it's called process within the slides. And on this slide, I'm just going to basically demonstrate like how if, for example, something's becoming larger or smaller, the numbers are going down or up. The students at this time will be listening and paying attention to the process of this that we're going to be listening and going through. So as they're saying here, there's going to be a group discussion as they're going through. This goes back up to this. What students are doing here, what are they doing? Students will be discussing and exploring the task. They're going through it. Again, for this procedure here as well. And then as we go further down, there's going to be a recap just to end. There's a recap just to end. So I will explain to students that now they're going to just go over the ideas of input, process, and output and relate it to real world devices. We've been doing this exactly for this last activity. We've been doing this for the process as well. We've been discussing, we've been demonstrating on how the students can apply this and how they apply to the previous activity. So asking the learners to create an input process, output process machine themselves for a free activity. So students will be doing this themselves. They'll be making this type of machine. They'll be doing this in PowerPoint, as you saw what I just did, and they'll be discussing this within the group. So the most important thing is for me is the discussion, and that they're getting it down, and they will be making one of these PowerPoints. But the whole point is the discussion, and that they're getting through it, and I'm moving around the classroom at this time. Okay, and then the recap down here. What is this digital device? What do they do? What are digital devices? What do they do? What is an input? What is a process? What is an output? Just go over that again, the students to recap for 5 minutes, and then we'll end the lesson there. It's to say what I improved. I'll need to understand, to undertake this lesson with a group of students. To improve it, I'll need to undertake this lesson plan with a group of students to know what areas to improve. So I'll need to find or do this, actually try this lesson with a group of students. In the next interview, as I was told, I'm going to have to explain this all again. So I'll explain this all again to most, to you again. But I made this video because I wanted something just on my YouTube, going through making a lesson plan, and I could add more to this, and you can just take your time and go through. And I think there'll be some very interesting questions to ask. And there's some areas on this that I, despite not having this done, there's some areas on this that I could improve. And the one area that I think I could improve on, I must admit, is the time. Other than that, I think this is, for the time that I have for this lesson plan, I think could work with the time, maybe just a little bit more time I would need. But however, I do believe if students have no problems like learning disability, no comprehension problems, English is fine, then the learning objectives will be met of understanding and explaining how digital devices function, input, process, output. Understanding, explaining digital devices, except input, we've done that. It's demoed on a really basic level, but this is what I think students need for the very first type of lesson before we move on. And students are following a process as well. They don't follow a process. Students can explain the digital devices output as well, that their output is something to a screen, their output is something to PayPal, they're outputting a movement by a robot. There's going to be many, many discussions. The students, as I said in this, there's lots of discussions, and students will, as they bring their knowledge in, the lesson will expand from those discussion areas. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. And I hope to see you all soon. Anyone that's watching this video on YouTube, maybe this will help you get started with lesson planning. There's a lot to it, and there's a lot to include. As you can see, from inclusion, lesson aims, and basically time management. There's a lot to include in this. But yeah, that is it for today. Hope to see you guys soon. I hope you've enjoyed this video. And this is just a basic thing, what I've done for a basic lesson. Yeah, there are areas that can be more improved with the layout, of the text within inside the emails, inside the columns. That's one thing I need to do. So okay, I'm gonna stop there. Thank you, everyone. That's my basic lesson planning for a lesson. Thank you.